we have a special challenger for you tonight. An enforcer from a bygone era. A Jedi! Let's see what he's got. Oh, somebody get baby his toy.
Show? I'll give you a show.
What's up, nerds? It's Titan here, and today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. A lot of Star Wars fans were on edge with this one, rightly expecting to see another EA-certified dumpster fire of a microtransaction-ridden hellscape. Amazingly though, they pulled this one from the fire, and we actually got a great game. A single-player game to top it off. A lot has already been said about this one though, so I want to try and take a more unique approach. I'm going to try and cover some of the aspects of Fallen Order that I feel make the game more unique, and as of this point, haven't been talked about that much in many other reviews. Normally, I would talk about gameplay, music, graphics, and probably the story. But here's the thing. They're actually all great in this game. I'd love to give you more info about them, but it's the same stuff you would have seen in other reviews of the game and a lot of other content, and it's definitely also something that you should take the time to experience. Stuff like the story is just something I don't want to ruin given how great it really is. So instead of focusing on the usual, I want to instead talk about mechanics, exploration, level design, and progression. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Now, just for some quick background, and this is the only information I'm going to give you guys about the story, so rest assured, this review is 100% spoiler-free. I've even curated the clips and the content appearing in the video to make sure that it all appears in the first half of the game, just so that none of the late game stuff, be it locations or characters, are spoiled for you guys. Now, your main character is named Cal, and he's a Padawan survivor of Order 66, and he's been on the run hiding from the Empire until the events of Fallen Order. One of the first things that jumped out at me when I started playing this game was the lightsaber control, the way Cal responds to your input. My first at-a-glance feeling was that it was very clunky, and I really didn't like it. The thing is, I was wrong. Very wrong. With just a little bit of time spent playing, it became natural, without even thinking. Very quickly, I reached a point where it felt less like plugging inputs into a keyboard and mouse, and more instead that Cal just responded the way that I wanted him to by sheer power of will. That may sound a bit odd, but it's something that is very hard to explain. The control method just seems so natural, and the more you play and use it, the more you grow and expand with it. It's not just Cal gaining additional mastery over the Force, but you as a player, you're gaining additional mastery over Cal. That is one of the aspects of Fallen Order that I love the most. There came this point in my own experience towards the end of the game where everything felt so natural that I honestly felt as though I was the one fighting, not Cal. Much like the lightsaber is to the Jedi, Cal had become an extension of myself. And this is a great point to pivot into progression, because Fallen Order has a progression system that I love, and is very closely tied to the mechanics of the game. In most games, progression is the result of gathering more and more powerful gear and upgrades for a character that enables them to face greater challenges. Some great examples of this are World of Warcraft, Star Wars The Old Republic, and a few others. In these MMOs, and many other games, both multiplayer and single player, your character is not the true source of your power. Instead, it's your gear and upgrades. Were you to strip them from your character, you would be left powerless, to the point that a strong wind could knock you over. That is something that has always bothered me on a deep level, and I think that Fallen Order has truly addressed and corrected the popular and easy method of progression we often see. As you progress through the game, your exploration rewards you with some upgrades and largely other tools that open up new areas of the game. You also get experience. I know this already sounds familiar, but stick with me here for a second, just 1 second. With experience, you gain levels, and you can buy upgrades. But unlike most other games, these upgrades don't represent huge power spikes. Instead, they offer you a slightly different toolset to approach certain situations with. But after no single upgrade do you feel much more powerful than you were before. In fact, after unlocking many of these upgrades, you still don't feel amazingly more powerful. So what gives, right? Well, while you do gain small bits of increased strength from abilities, the progression in Fallen Order is largely tied to your own mastery over the game. If you can complete the game on the hardest difficulty, and then were stripped of most of your upgrades in a harder section, you would likely be able to hold your own. Because your strength and progression comes from within yourself. Your ability to time blocks so that you can successfully parry. Your ability to dodge at just the right time and come back in with a strike when they're vulnerable. Or even to work around large groups. All of that is something that you can do. It's tied to you, the player, not your gear or your upgrades. The way the developers have structured the game is so impactful as a player that I couldn't be happier or have even asked for anything more. This is a game that makes me feel powerful, and more than that, it makes me feel as though my strength is earned and it can't be stripped from me. It's not some gear that makes me strong, but rather that I, the player, am strong, and that in turn makes Cal strong. Now this is a bit of a pivot, but we're going to jump into exploration, because exploration is another one of the aspects that I haven't heard covered a lot. There have been some surface level comparisons to other games, but it really is something that was done in just such a good way from so many different perspectives that it's something that I have to take the time to focus on so that we talk about it and all the points that I think a lot of people have skipped over. Exploration is just one of the many aspects that was done right in Fallen Order, and it's so expansive that I found myself constantly surprised. Before jumping into this game, like many fellow fans, I waited to see what the early adopters had to say, before I dropped more unearned coins into the bottomless hole that is the undeserved EA coin purse. In waiting to jump in, I listened to what others had to say, and the most common complaint I heard echoed was that the game is short, and that kind of worried me, quite a bit actually. But I'm happy to report that the game is quite a bit longer than most would expect, and also includes way more content than I personally expected, despite the negative reviews I'd seen. There are several planets that you can visit, and many of them are very, very large. You can also tackle them in any order that you see fit, which is a huge improvement over a lot of story-based games, and it goes so far to making you feel like you're not tied up or chained in some sort of theme park, following the designated order just like a good little Jedi. When I first visited Zepho, I had concerns. While the level design was amazing, it felt small, which made me all the more elated when I returned later on and realized that not only was there much more story content to be had, but there was entire sections of the planet that I just didn't have access to. They were much larger than the sections I did have access to at the beginning. It was at that moment that I realized the true depth of this game. It's not just one planet that's like that. Most of the places you will go will open up over time, with more story content and upgrades that let you push into more and more areas that were previously untouchable. Even if you do blitz the game and finish it quickly, there is so much to go back and discover that certainly makes it worth your time to do so. The way the exploration is structured is also impressive in such a way that makes the world feel alive. But that's more of a level design thing, so let's talk design for just a sec. Exploration feels as impactful as it does because of the stellar level design. It's not just the placement of checkpoints or enemies, but the entire layout of the levels themselves. There is an impressive verticality to most planets that you don't see in most other games, and this goes a long way towards contributing to the feelings that places you're exploring are real, rather than a long tunnel that exists in some black expanse with nothing else. A lot of the forks in the road that you will encounter have been structured in such a way that they solve two of the most common problems I see in video games. The first is the inevitable annoyance you feel when you encounter a fork in the road, because you have to ask yourself which direction feels like it's the side path versus the main path. Because you don't want to accidentally choose the main path, as you would lose out on whatever you might gain by taking the secondary route and then doubling back to go the right way. Instead, in Fallen Order, the side path is often inaccessible at the beginning, because you won't have all of the abilities you need to explore it just yet. This takes a lot of the stress out of the equation, because not only will the map tell you where you can go right now, and what's locked based on your current powers, but it also lets you know that there is so much more to come back and do later without any pressure. This is such a hugely successful design choice because it actually makes exploring fun, as opposed to leaving you feeling punished for choosing to take the wrong path. Secondly, it adds so much value to the space you've already explored. So often in games, when I'm forced to backtrack, it feels punishing and boring. It's not an enjoyable experience, but instead a task. That's not a problem here, because you're not going back through a dull, empty space for a single objective. You're revisiting a map that feels completely new, because so much more has opened up to you now that despite having a ton of ground you've already covered, there is so much more that is untouched. I could go on, but I think the point here has been made. The design team did a stellar job with every single area in this game, and it is definitely deserving of replays and revisits. There is never a dull moment here. So I know that we've not covered much of anything that relates to the story of the game, or talked in depth about the common stuff like graphics or music. I really don't want to ruin the story in the slightest, and you really don't need to know anything about it other than it's amazing and that it deserves your time. As for graphics and music, you've been able to see and hear that throughout this review, and I think we can agree that they're amazing. I've done my best to limit the footage to the earlier parts of the game to not spoil anything major, and leave some things a bit of a mystery. But what I can say with certainty is that Fallen Order is absolutely worth your time. I've focused on a lot of things that I feel make this experience truly unique and one of the best Star Wars games out there. Without a doubt in my mind, I can say that Fallen Order is worth your money. It's even worth the full release price it had on launch, and it would not have been a waste. To top it off, the devs have recently added additional free content to the game. Nothing major, but it clearly hasn't been shelved in the realms of many other launched titles with no ongoing support. Now, I'd like to take a minute to indulge my inner cynic, because I do still have concerns about what this means for future EA titles. It's possible EA released Fallen Order and Squadrons both as an attempt to quell fan outrage. I think it takes an astounding amount of effort to become the most disliked company in history, or to manage to take the record for the most downvoted Reddit comment in history, but somehow EA continues to impress me with their failures. But that's a bit too far off topic. So instead of hijacking any more of this video, if you're interested in hearing more on that subject, you can check out my recent post at the link in the description below. Overall, Jedi Fallen Order is an astounding success. If you've not picked it up yet, I would highly encourage you to. And I would love to hear what you have to say. Do you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Please go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section down below. As always, if you guys are interested in joining the community, having a conversation, or just playing some games, you can also find the Discord link to join the community Discord in the description down below as well. I hope you guys are having a great day, and stay safe out there.